All right. So just to share with you, please, we've actually had a request from the World Economic Forum. I'm hoping you can see it on that survey. I've just dropped a survey, and it's really about understanding how small to medium enterprises handle their data governance, data privacy, data ethics. So there's a big survey that the World Economic Forum are trying to hold, and they'd really appreciate as many people as possible to respond to that survey. So that's a Dama reach out from Dama and Mia. And I wanted to share something else. Oh yes, the month, Debs, would you mind going one back? The next month, or the previous month, or sorry, the April month, that's going to be hosted by JG Cowper. And all of those, he attended the IT Web, and there were several sessions on data strategy in that IT Web BI conference, and he's hosting different people that presented on data strategy every Friday. So they're going every Thursday. There's going to be a different presenter every Thursday, but it will be hosted and connected by JG Cowper. So if any of you are interested in hearing about the different viewpoints on data strategy, that would be fantastic. All right, and then just to hand over to Christine. Christine, thanks again. It's always been great listening to your talks and discussing how and opening my eyes to change management. And certainly Paul Bolton and those people that are around, we've learned a lot from Christine around change management, and a lot of these diagrams look familiar. Looks like some of the stuff we've used in some of the projects, so that's also great fun to see that that's happening. Thank you very much, Christine.
Pleasure. No, thank you, Howard. And the learning experience has always been mutual and most valuable. So thank you. And I'm glad it's familiar because we started to build it on our last project together. So what I've done is expanded on the thinking more from a metric point of view. So I think it would be quite valuable. Yeah.
Nice.
I know you love having that discussion. Oh, I'm in such trouble already.
Music to my ears.
So, if I can just ask everybody to put, what about learning is a problem for you? That's my question. If you can just pop that in the chat and take 2 minutes while I talk through the agenda, then I can reel those in while I'm presenting to you. So what about learning is difficult for you? Let me pop that question in the chat. It's a specific question.
And specific adoption, or are we talking about us adopting the new learning, or other people adopting our?
Whether you're the learner, or whether you're giving the learning, or whether you're anything.
Okay, all right.
And maybe say, as facilitator, this is what's difficult. As learner, this is what's difficult. What role do you play? So the two issues from a learner point of view is the time it takes with competing, balancing work and life as a learner. And the other point that Carolyn brought up is it's frustrating. It feels being efficient and effective until you become familiar, until it becomes the new way of working. Matt, so you create learning content, and how do you do that so that the audience can understand? Specifically with very few having the baseline knowledge. In your situation, it's specifically around data management. Good one. Caro again. as a facilitator, not being able to give people the time and space to learn because of business priorities. And that is so true. Business just expects you to know the stuff. And if you need to learn the stuff, they don't allocate time out of your work day. You have to find the time. Overcoming the anxieties of participants. Yeah. Takes hours converting DMBOK into content that can be consumed. Oh, wow. And it's such good content. And if you're starting from a zero base, then you really struggle. Yeah.
Yeah. So, sometimes having a very theoretical topic or set of concepts or principles, it's not easy to keep that going and keep people understanding. Christine, we've lost you. You're on mute.
I switched off my mic because I brought my German Shepherd in. He's barking at monkeys. The monkeys come and pinch our pecan nuts off our tree.
All right.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Sorry, Howard, you were saying?
We have this 4-day DMBOK crash course. I think you've been on it with Costa, and
yes.
Presenting a very principle-based course is really hard, and keeping people, not going into too much detail, just the right level, almost that Goldilocks principle. And people want to know how to do it, but then, you have to keep going and keep getting through the content.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I think there's some good insights there. And I just want to start with Paul's comment about keeping in mind that we all have different learning preferences. So we've got 4 learning types: kinesthetic, auditory, visual, and what's the other one? Verbal. Some people learn by talking, other people learn by doing, other people learn can just listen. And sometimes we've got a combination of that. Now, if in your learning material you're not able to address all those learning preferences, you're going to lose the attention of a few people. So it's always good to build that in your content in some way. It's not always easy. And Howard, I'm just recalling those 4 days of, people go in with the impression that data's data. I mean, how complicated can data be?
Yeah.
Jeez, and when you step into that world, you suddenly realize data is probably one of the most complex. Remember the early days, Howard, at Reserve Bank, it was like, no, you don't need a change manager because it's just data. But data is transformative. It changes the way, even more so than a system, it changes the way you do things, the way you think about things, the disciplines it requires. So, for me, it was definitely a learning thing, and hence the complexity of teaching data. The best thing I can say from my experience is you've got to meet people where they're at. Now, the challenge is if everybody's on a zero baseline, you're fine. Yeah. But you've got also within a classroom varying degrees of understanding. So now not everybody's leaving from the same platform. You've got people leaving for a plane on platform A and others leaving on C. And so how do you normalize this? And I always find participation helps me understand that, meeting them where they're at.
Yeah. So Christine, for example, we have a pre-assessment and we get scores ranging from 5% to 70%. So Veronica's got a great set of questions and we go through this, and now you see this difference like this, and now you've got to try to bring people together. And then language is another barrier that we fight with now. Yeah. Where the language is also so you got to dumb down or simplify your language as well.
Yeah, So Veronica, I mean, with such disparity, I mean, how do you find a baseline? Hi, by the way.
Mm.
How do you find a baseline and bring it all together when you've got such extremes?
I assume that people don't really know anything, so I kind of pictured at the beginners, and the others haven't complained, but
Yeah.
try and make sure that everybody's on the same page. And I ask questions. I say, has anybody heard of this? And do you understand this concept? And then you'll find somebody who does, but they're usually willing to help those that don't.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And often the experts come in and learn a thing or two, believing that they're very proficient, but actually they didn't realize everything that there is to know about data. And I think just on that departure point, I think learning is a continuous process. It's lifelong. Even if you're an expert in the area, and Howard, I'd put you and Veronica and Paul up there with the best, you're still learning, right? So if you're still learning, then we're all still learning. Yeah.
I was actually sharing that when I sit and listen to Veronica, sometimes when she's training, every now and again it's like, oh, okay, I haven't picked that up, and so it's amazing.
Listens. So what I wanted to do, and because I'm a change management specialist, I wanted to integrate learning and give a sense of where learning fits into the world of a change journey, and also what I've learned with regards to course design in a global entity as a result of what they're struggling with, and how we can find leading and lagging indicators that can help us be more proactive. So how do we learn? A very simple model. I'm going to take us through just to bring a point across. How do we enhance learning experience? That's going to be the integration of this change journey along with the learning collateral. And then how do we measure learning success? So hopefully it's valuable. Let me see if I can click on the next slide. Okay. So how do we learn? Well, if people just talk to me, I'm probably only going to learn up to 20% of what I need to. This is going beyond the learning styles. This is talking generally speaking. If I just have to listen and learn by listening, I'm only going to retain, because this is retention. Let me just start there as well. After a training event, the training memory or recall is reduced. If you want to increase the retention and understanding of a training event, you need to be clear on this, because people forget. If they just listen to something, their retention is going to be short-lived and lower. So, for example, verbal is 20%, visual. So if I have visual, okay, so remember now it's auditory and visual, it's a 50%. Understanding, and so I will remember longer. And the last one is if it's active. So it's not just a demo. Somebody's not just talking through it, but I'm actually able to do some kind of simulation or participate in a debate. The retention is much higher. Okay, so it's a very important concept because this tells us something very valuable. And I will share this deck anyway, but this basically says that active learning is the way to go. Where there's auditory, there is participation, there's discussion. So you need to build that into your learning approach. Howard?
Yes, so one of the things I've been reading up on is what they call active listening, meaning that you make sure you don't have the phones, and when people are talking to you, that you you actively engaging with their words. Now I'm assuming that's on the hearing, right? So people are saying that if I actively listen to you, if I almost confirm and I say, is this what you mean? And I get confirmation that I understand what you mean, or I've heard what you've said. Is that part of this active learning?
So it's still verbal. For me, I would say it's still verbal. If you're talking to pictures like I am now, I would say it's viewing pictures. So it's a higher level of retention because it's supported by pictures. Remember, we remember pictures a lot easier, even if we're not
Sure.
visual, than sentences. So if it's reinforced with words, the retention is better. So if I wasn't showing you this visual and only talking to it, your understanding would be limited and your retention would be shorter lived. So it's always good to have support slides. What you're talking about, Howard, for me is active listening. Now, in a world where our attention span is so limited and we have so many competing priorities, we always multitasking. And even when we don't have to, we're thinking, oh, shucks, I mustn't forget to make that call. And
Yes.
what I have to do to bring myself, and it might be distracting for somebody, but if I really want to focus on what somebody is talking about, I actually have to doodle or take notes because that makes the noise less in my head. But that might not be true for everybody else, but it does make me a more active listener. I might not be seen as an active listener because I'm doodling or writing notes, but yeah, so it's a very tricky point that you raised there.
Okay.
And I think it's I think overarching in all of this, if I'm not an active listener, I'm not even leaving off baseline 10.
Yeah.
Because we can do the demos, we can participate. You won't be able to participate if you're not actively listening.
Good.
So yeah, good point there. But what we're saying is you want to reach a combination of auditory, visual, and participative learning in your learning program, because that increases the retention and it enhances the understanding. And that's why, Howard, I think your models are so nice because you have a framework and then you expand on different points. So you build this a visual map in a person's mind, which always makes the recall a lot easier and quicker.
Right.
So I've
we
always
saw that
appreciated.
we saw that this week with doing that DVD way, that that learning path, or that thing. And it was amazing how people come say, okay, in here, if I do it here, is this the right place to do that thing? So they follow that chain, they follow the map, and they can hang things on.
Yes. So yeah, I've spoken about the way we need to learn. It needs to have all the ingredients, especially participation, not just verbal. Going on to the learning content itself, okay, it's very important for us to understand that there are layers like a cake. So the first bit is we can communicate about this data and the value of data and the benefits of data and why we need data. How meaningful is that to me depends on my role, the attention I've given it, and the need I have. If it's an urgent need where I have to solve a problem, you're going to have full attention. If it's something I've been told I need to go on a course for, and I'm thinking my manager's put me on that course because he thinks I'm a dimwit, not because he sees potential in me, and he hasn't communicated, I'm sending you on this course because I see you as a potential leader in the field, and I'm feeling like you're putting me there because you think I'm stupid. So positioning why I'm attending the training is critical because that creates the what's in it for me as a learner. And management often forget that. They don't get people excited about it. It's just thrown at them. There's this course you must go on. And then I'm not sure if it's because you're celebrating me or thinking I'm stupid, So the first part is awareness and the communication around that learning experience. Why are we doing it? Where do I see your role? What is your potential? What is the need? What is the value you bring? So that would be the first part. It doesn't mean I've learned anything yet. It's just creating my need for learning.
Yeah.
And that's mostly around communication. That's why it's got a level naught there, because it's got nothing to do with learning. It's just the level naught of creating awareness through communication. So the level 2 is talking about concepts. So Howard, in your world, a data concept, what would they be? That I mean, it would be your different frameworks, your different context diagrams. It will be,
Yeah.
you're still not in the
Data
guts.
management concepts, or even principles like data is an asset. That's a concept that people need to understand.
Even outside that chapter, their concepts and the whole diagram, that beautiful diagram where we've got change and ethics on the outside. What do we call that?
Yeah, that's
The Dama wheel.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's, and then diving into the detail in the different chapters. That is conceptual knowledge. It doesn't mean I know how to implement or use data, but it does give me a very nice framework and understanding of the complexity of data and the principles. Level 2 is around a process. So within that context, how is it used? Where is it used? What is it used for? All that good stuff. In your world, Howard, maybe give us an example.
Yeah, so this would be, for example, data governance. They would need to do a maturity assessment or ideation session, then maturity, then data strategy, then set up an operating model, practice establishment. So it's almost that recipe or playbook that that one works through, and then each one would have a process in terms of how we would do it. And so that's a sort of what you do per knowledge area or per capability. These are the processes that are required.
Great, thank you. And then the last one is, well, how do I do it? How do I actually do it? And that's the mechanics. Sometimes it's a tool you're using and it's a transaction that you need to learn. Or in your case, how do I do a model? What's the fundamentals of Power BI? That is the tool that you might be using, or Excel or whatever. So that's the lowest, most granular level of the learning. Now, when you design learning content and you're trying to get a point across, the top 3 layers create the learning content, and they need to be integrated. The biggest problem I found in sophisticated organizations is they do process training separate to the transactional training, separate to the knowledge bits. So they would kick off with all the knowledge bits. This is the presentation. This is what data management means. This is the framework. This is great. 2 days pass, some BA comes along and does the business process training. And then they give you a little bit of training on the tool. When it's integrated, and that's why the word is there, when the learning content is integrated, so the process relates to the transaction, or the how relates to the concepts, and it's integrated, it makes it so powerful because the person can understand everything in one shot. It's not broken up as pieces of information. Now, this is in an ideal world. So this is why I've done it in a cube, because I've actually said, whatever module you have, if you look here at the top, you slice it down and there are these layers. And the more you're able to integrate these layers of learning, the more powerful that learner experience is. Not only that, you need to think when you're creating this, how am I going to measure this? How am I going to know that the learner, it's hit the spot with the learner? And that's really challenging. And it's a scary conversation to have with Howard, because you realize you don't have the answers, but you need to look at that in the design of your learning content. I'm just going to pause here before I go to the next slide, if there are any questions.
There aren't any questions, but I've got one. So if we take, for example, the DMBOK training, the CDMP fundamentals. So our outcome and what we would validate is that the person writes a CDMP exam and passes. And of course, we have a post-assessment, and every chapter we have a set of questions, and people then do a quick quiz after the chapter. And Ross mentioned the mentee. So we actually do, for example, data management, fundamental data management, then we do a mentee, and then we do a quiz. So we've got these levels of engagement. But there's no real hands-on or applied right now, because the principle itself is data is an asset. Okay, fantastic, it's an asset, but what does that mean, and when do I apply it within my business? So there's a big disconnect between the principle we're teaching and being able to apply it in a business process or in a transaction. So I'm not sure the advice or how we would use that.
Are you maybe speaking, Howard, about, so I've done the learning, and in the learning space, you guys have built in awesome checks. I mean, I must say, the Friday sessions that Veronica runs for reinforcement and coaching, and I mean, they're really equipped, they're set up for success. Over and above the great learning and that. Once I've got this, are you maybe referring to application on the job?
Yeah, so
now
I'm
I've
actually
got
looking at, my problem is adoption. And also, as you can see, there's course A, and we've got module 1, module 2. So we've got 16 modules that we need to get through. So each module is broken up into a session, and then you do the module. So the first module is on chapter 1, data management. I'm sort of in agreement.
Yeah.
What would be nice is there a practical way of getting to a business process or a transaction? Because we've introduced a conceptual context.
Yes.
And now we've got to almost look at, what is the business process and role based on what is the transaction on the system? So that's what I'm sort of asking is how would we connect? And of course, our problem is that you've got 4 days, so you can't spend an hour talking about that connection point. You sort of got that clock running, and you can go out of time.
So, I mean, for me, those what makes it real in a corporate sense is when they take the knowledge and they apply it back at the office using the tools that they have and the business process.
Okay,
because
but
that's integration from the role.
So that would mean after the course. So it's not,
yes.
I thought you were saying one module at a time. If we could slice it one module at a time and get that.
So when we design corporate training, we're able to do that because we understand in that corporate what the tools are. So where I am currently, they've got an authoring development tool called SAP Enable Now. That is a tool that creates learning content in the transactional space. That you can draw reports that the learner has done it and passed successfully because there is a test mode. The business process, or whatever that business process requires of them, one step is a transaction. That business process is positioned up front. And even before that, the knowledge concepts are in place. So it's integrated. But in your context, I want to share this other model. I just want to show you on the ADCAR model where I see what you're asking. So we're saying active learning and the construct of content needs to be integrated. Easier said than done, right? This is all conceptual models. And you're raising a valid point there, Howard. But what will enhance learning even more is seeing learning as a journey. Now, you've got, I'm using ADCAR again because that's just the global understanding. where the awareness, so all the blue bits is kind of communication. So here, my manager contacts me, says, you've got to go on this course. It's demo. Joe gets told by his manager, it's because you're such a fabulous chap and you show so much interest in data. So Joe gets on the course and he feels like a star and he's putting all his heart and effort into it because his manager's invested in him positively. Another guy gets told, listen, you better go on this course because you need to learn about data. The guy goes on the course and feels like he's inferior. He's not going to put his heart and soul in. So the pre-activity, the pre-positioning of the learning experience has an impact. Also, in context of the wider business, the awareness bit and the desire, these are affected in relation to the business's wider context. Surprise, and it's a big thing. They know the importance and they're on there. But if it's not communicated or clear, the desire might be less of the learner. I'm talking now the learner experience, right? The knowledge, so the components. We've spoken about the conceptual stuff. A lot of that can happen even before the classroom because, you know, what is data? What is the value in our organization? Why are we going on it? What is the demo wheel? How does it all fit together? Is very good. What are different models? What are different forums? Those are knowledge components. That doesn't mean I can do the job yet. The ability is where a model will come in and give you this fabulous training experience with all the content you need to know, with all the support you need to have. But depending on me leaving that environment, even passing and going back to the work environment where the reinforcement isn't there. I'm the sole person that's fighting this battle on my own. And we've had these discussions, Howard, in some of the other forums where people feel like they're not understood, they're not supported, not because they don't know what they should do, but the rest of the world is not on the same page. Now, there's an arrow that you draw here, from here to here, where only a certain amount, only leading up to, if I was to draw an arrow from there to there, ability comes up until the classroom. But after that, there's application on the job. So the world that merges these two steps is actually application on the job. And I get better at it the more I apply, the more questions I ask, the more, because that then makes the learning experience not academic anymore. It makes it applied and real in my environment. And only the learner can assimilate and digest that. But without the right support, it's going to be less successful. So that's why I use ADCOP, because there's this, and actually in the deck that I send you, I'll send you that cut off what's in the classroom and what's not. Okay. But application on the job is where the real learning happens, is what I'm trying to say here. So, I mean, your main objective is for them to learn, get the best experience and pass. But then the other level, and that's why I use the journey, is to how well are they able and supported to apply it in the environment and understand the tools they use and optimize that. Sorry, Howard, you have a question?
Yeah, I like this presentation. And what I'm finding now is I was just being approached by Egypt, and they are saying, we want talks on two areas. We want to talk on data awareness and then a talk on data literacy. And I thought, oh my goodness, finally the people are realizing that let's not give them all this data literacy training before we give them the data awareness training. So they're very keen on shoving data literacy down everybody's throat. This is how you read a diagram. This is how you do Excel. This is how you read all the stuff. And it's okay, so well, what's the awareness? And are we having certain executives thinking, well, I'm not really interested in, and this doesn't really apply to me. So I've just noticed that in the last 2 months where people are saying, hold your horses on data literacy and have you got the data awareness right?
Wow, that's something to be celebrated, because
Yeah.
it is a journey. And if we leave any of these steps out, the learning experience is minimized. You can have
Yeah.
the best training material here and the ability when you do the training, but if the way it was positioned to me was bad, and if I'm not getting the right support on the job, it's
Yeah.
going to reduce that impact. And that's why I say it's a journey. The pre and post learning has an impact. So that's very good to hear, Howard. And from Egypt, I mean, really cool.
Yeah.
So in this journey, there's a trail of communication from awareness to reinforcement. And that should be consistent. It should come from the leader. It should come from the group. It should become from the project team, whatever. It should be consistent, and it should make sense, and it should be linked. The training. So the classroom training, sorry, and I see there's a typo there. The knowledge and ability is the part that is training. And then we've got the sustainability, and you can see here they overlap. So that little arrow I'm going to draw in, this bit is application on the job. Where we talk about sustain, that's actually where application on the job happens. And then it becomes business as usual. And of course, there are iterations of that. Over time, I'm going to get better. The new tools, I'm going to know more about Power BI. I'm going to get a colleague that knows more than me and learn from them, whatever the case may be. We might become more mature as an organization. So business as usual, and this is iterative. So what I do here is I want to merge the two models together, because I want to explain that you can't see things in isolation. So if we were to take the change journey and we recognize that knowledge and ability is what we call training, the training component, and we look at this model that I took you through, recognizing that reinforcement, you'll see the green here and the green here are the same. It then begs to differ that we need to recognize that there is a relationship between the journey of communicating the learning experience and training. And then, of course, reinforcing, sorry. So this is just demonstrating that you've got a change journey. Learning does not happen in isolation. There's this link. And that's what this diagram is trying to show. So you can create the best learning collateral. But if the organization does not support the learner pre or post, the learning that, or even during, I mean, they say you must do the learning in your own time. What does that tell the learner? The learning's not important.
Or they have meetings, they schedule meetings on their learning. Well, whilst
And
they're
they
in the...
know the person, yeah, and that happens. And you know what I see that's very distressing is people accept meetings and they're multitasking. Now, you were talking about active listening.
Yeah.
We are setting ourselves up for failure because we're not teaching corporates that we're not machines. We cannot attend everything all the time. And actually, if we are going to leverage off the money invested in this learning exercise, we need to pay full attention to it. We need to give it the time it deserves. So, yeah, these are just concepts. I'll pause here before I go to the next slide, if there are any questions.
Yes, you got a question from Ross?
Ross, I see you frowning, which is very worrying.
I always frown.
Oh, okay.
It's active listening.
Yes,
Is that
listening,
okay? I'll remember
or
that.
engage the eyebrows. So I was actually wondering, Christine, in terms of this learning and what we're doing here, in terms of AI and the world that we seem to be moving towards, this ChatGPT, and for me it speaks to also knowledge and guidance being available on demand. What is this gonna? I mean, I fully buy into what you're saying. I'm just saying that you know, organizations have these demands on people and things like that. Will the trend not be towards, you know, things like Chat GPT, where you can just ask the question on the spot, you know? I mean, it's not applicable to all situations, but there are a lot of situations where we're providing learning, and really these could be reinforced on the job, with AI, you know, just responding like Chat GPT to questions that we might have.
So Ross, I mean, you're raising something that we call it in our space poly something, where you can put something in a search engine and get a draft of a letter. So now as a comms specialist, it's like, okay, anybody can now do comms, but or anybody like what course data management, and you do a search and then they throw up what's available. But there's a standard, right? That's not going to be the standard. That's just going to be popular. What's most popular? It's like if you go on a Netflix channel, you can see the top 10. So your search will reveal the top 10 unless you look for something specific. And the top 10 is not the best from an intellectual point of view. So, sorry, I don't know if I'm confusing the issue, but I'm trying to make a point. That is not about learning. That is actually dumbing down and making a quick fix solution. I'm not saying that it won't offer a good result. I'm saying us as specialists are not going to learn the way we used to, or need to learn the way we used to. So we're going to rely more on these tools. And where's that going to leave us? It's a very, I don't have the answer. I mean,
So Christine, let me add a context here, because it's certainly something I've been looking at. I don't know if you know that 3-2-1 sort of formula of sort of 50% of the time we should be doing learning on the job, and then we get 2 out of 6 should be learning in review with people, and then 1 should be face-to-face learning. Now, what ChatGPT is doing, and I went to a presentation, there's a company called Hannah, and what they are saying is you can now almost bring your knowledge management. Let's say you've done a lot of knowledge management, you've converted tacit to explicit, you've got all your processes defined, and you're now sitting on Teams and you're saying, oh, shucks, I need to do a data quality assessment, or what about this? In that moment, you can be interacting with ChatGPT, and you can be saying, oh, please explain to me quality assessment. And it's that famous one of as a 5-year-old. And so what you are able to do now is to have micro learning and not macro learning or face-to-face. And what we see the difference is sometimes when you learn brand new concepts, you need face-to-face, but when you're inside something, then you could be doing the just-in-time learning or learning on the job.
Yes. So GPT definitely has its place, Howard. I think we agree there. And it's more just in time, more kind of a basic learning and understanding. But when you go to the specialist kind of level, you would need a more one-on-one kind of engagement, because you're developing a skill, right? A skill gets developed over time, your competency increases. And the way we learn is different now as well, because you know, in the Agile world, what they're creating is coach buddies.
Yeah.
And whatever I learn from you, then I teach you. And so we're continuously learning new skills on the job. So the ratio is quite high there on collaboration and that 3-2-1. And that is the way to go, because it is a much better way of learning than sitting behind a desk in a classroom, trying to understand key concepts. I mean, like the world of publishing, everything has changed. My only question, and sorry, Ross, my only question is, as a data specialist, when I use GPT, what is the level of quality? So how do I know that what I get as a result is the best available out there, or is it what is in the populace?
Okay, but this is where they've got the technology working. They've demonstrated to the world in terms of how much it can consume. And you are right. There's a lot of biases that may be there, and then you've got a problem. But what the people are suggesting is very shortly you can actually deploy ChatGPT in your own platform with your own knowledge management. So then you're getting ChatGPT to help people understand the processes and the knowledge sharing within an organization. So it's the NLP and the way of engaging and the ability to learn. That's what you're getting out of this tech. You're not just getting the fact that it's learned everything about the world and may not do practices the way you do it. You now are going to be able to apply that to your environment.
So now if my organization's maturity is very low on data.
Yeah, then you've got a problem. Then your knowledge
That's okay.
management's not there. But then you've got a problem anyway. So then getting people to help each other in the business, I mean, it's the blind leading the blind, as an example. Because then they're going to go into Google and say, give me the top 10 ways of doing this, or DMA, DMA, and then yeah.
Exactly.
So you've got to get to that knowledge management level when this really starts to help and allows you to be guided by the system.
Yeah. Ross?
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of mention that I watched an interesting YouTube video. What's his name? Noam Chomsky. Okay, he's a linguist, and one of the issues that he raised from his perspective in terms of like ChatGPT and learning, one of his observations was he definitely felt that the ability to learn without these kind of tools will become more and more compromised. So he had this sense that it's actually dumbing down our actual real capability, as opposed, by using this supported learning. So I mean, there's different flavors, and I mean, I think we just need to understand and recognize, and it's just this balancing game that needs to be, recognized and dealt with, and not just throw everything out the bath. It has its applications, and it's, that just speaks to the judicious use of the technology and these kinds of ideas. That's from what I'm getting.
Yeah, I think there is a level of dumbing down. I mean, here you're the expert, you're the data expert, you're in an organization, some bright spark uses a ChatGPT, comes up with a model that is wrong. That as an expert. They're flogging that. And you're now taking 10 steps back because this is now what's in the system and this is what's being proposed. So you're swimming upstream. And also, it's lazy. People don't want to apply and process their minds anymore. They want to go into Google and quickly search. Google is your friend. This is going to be like a enterprise Google. It does have its place, because just in time, if I've got to understand what the metrics, what's that acronym? SMART. Yeah. It's great because it's standard. I mean, that's not negotiable. There's no level of maturity. But in a complex discipline, be it data management, change management, it's a different ball game. And for me, people are going to find quick solutions that aren't going to really speak to the problem. But I suppose it will mature as our ecosystems increase. And what would make me more comfortable is if an organization uses the ChatGPT and it draws from the best in the world. So, if it's data, it must go to the standard. And if DAME is one of the standards, that's where it should draw from. It shouldn't draw from an engineer that's designed a data model based on experience that is half accurate. And that's now in the ecosystem, and that's what's coming up.
So Christine, I think that's what I was trying to say is the data governance department should be setting up our policies, practices, procedures, and standards. You know, that SIPOC work that we did.
Yes. Yes.
And then what the right approach is to ensure that ChatGPT can work with the individuals in the organization to query the knowledge management. So all those policies and procedures, that's going from tacit to explicit. You're getting sign off, you're getting people to agree that's the way we do things. And then what you're using is something like ChatGPT to help people engage with that massive body of SIPOC knowledge of all the processes, and to say, you know, this is what you're looking for, and this is how I guide you. So on this step, for example, you need to do an assessment, and then this is the way you'll do it. But that's coming from your knowledge base, not from the world's knowledge base. And then it's up to the specialists to keep contributing and improving their knowledges and doing the retros to confirm that the knowledge is appropriate. But what you're doing is now you're getting to a point where you're stopping them going to Google and finding it out because they've got easy access to it.
Yeah. Wow, it's a very interesting space, and that solution, like you say, Howard, if the governance is set up correctly up front, we can leverage the benefit, you know, and hopefully that happens. It's just made your job even bigger.
Yeah, we got to get there
To
quicker.
educate.
We got to get there quicker, and we got to get there in terms of having that available, and then but applying that technology to the learning, you know, and thinking about that learning a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
there are some questions. I just Nisha said, my experience recently has been that change management specialists are definitely needing to do a basic NAMA course for their context and to develop a framework to align that. As a DM team, we are driving a change program, and we're finding that we have to do a lot of it ourselves, but also teach them. So there's definitely a gap, but also an opportunity. And I think that goes to our relationship, Christine.
But Howard, you've got good stuff on your survey. If they sign up for your course, they can have access to all those frameworks and models.
But remember, you and I, how much time and I think what Nisha's saying is how much time we had to spend together making sure that you understood the context of data so that you could help people change. Yeah.
And I still don't. You know, I'm a tough student. What can I say? No. Let me tell you, I've come a long way, and data is definitely transformative. They need to treat a data project as a transformational project.
Okay.
It is not transactional. It is not based. It's not like a change would address a transformational project enterprise-wide. That is how they need to treat data. And we built some nice tools and nice assets together, Howard. I mean, I don't mind if it's made available to your students at all, and if they can leverage and use it. Yeah.
Nisha, did that answer? Just checking with Nisha. Nisha, is that what you were saying? Is that your observation?
Yeah, I think that helps, Howard. I definitely think there is, content, and as we building this program, I'm just realizing, as Christina said, that in our program we must actually address the change management gap and say to our change managers, you guys need to consider getting going for a course or something, and I'm sure that between yourself and Christine there is something that we can put together, if not anything formal. That would definitely help.
Just to share with you, Christine, the amount of coffee that we drank in the beginning, just working with each other, just to understand how do we apply it, how do I help Christine to understand the vision and selling that to the people. So it's not an easy thing, and it doesn't happen quickly.
Yeah, it's a process. And I still remember us taking papers and scribbles, Howard, and drawing, and then thinking, and then you'd come up with the model, and I think, okay, yeah, okay, now I understand. And you know what's being said about COVID, and that's what I wanted to say here in the learning too, is a lot of learning happens socially. So, I mean, we would meet in the morning and have our coffee and just talk and then ask questions and unpack and learn and share. The same with, since COVID, we've gone very digital. We've gone digital in our meetings. So there's less physical interaction. And that's why there's limited opportunity to organically engage and learn in the moment. And what we're finding is the preference of organizations learning is going digital as much as possible.
Yeah.
But self-paced learning with these layers in place. So built in the relevant concept with the relevant process with the relevant transaction. But it is more digital and there is less organic learning, collaborative, on the ground, in the moment learning. That's lost in that. But it is a lot more efficient. I mean, to Kara's point, a lot more efficient. We can do metrics because it's all system related. Now I'll show you the metrics. Nasi's got her hand, or is it Nasi?
Yes.
Yeah.
Nisha. Nisha.
Yes, I agree with you, Christine.
Sorry, I
as we
botched up your name there. Eh?
No, it's fine.
So sorry.
What I wanted to add. So yes, we definitely, with the digital transformation, the other thing to add to that is we're driving so many of our initiatives in a more agile format. And everything is broken up into smaller bits of MVPs. And we're finding that, so with my previous comment, the comment I got from the change manager was he kept trying to understand what I was trying to, tell him about data management from a project context. And it's so hard to change that mindset because everyone is on this digital agile journey, and we almost becoming brainwashed into it if we're not conscious and aware of it.
Yeah, I mean, for that change manager, I'd highly recommend that 4-day course. The intervene, because that really gives you concepts to understand the subject matter, and then why it's transformational and what the impact is. And in an agile world, I find, so if we talk agile, we talk about minimum viable product per iteration. And often that definition of what the MVP is limited because we sometimes working in an agile way, but we're using but we've got waterfall thinking. So we're not thinking in terms of what is the incremental result we can deliver in a short space and how do we build on that? It's all just, let's take this waterfall and break it up. That's not what agile is.
Yeah.
So there's also that misunderstanding, and because we're merging this hybrid, we're getting a bit of a mishmash. It's really a very dynamic world that we live in. I miss the old days where you would have a plan, you could stick to the plan, and you could get a sense that you were achieving something. Here, it's so dynamic. It's very exciting times. But welcome to touch base with me, and I'm happy to share whatever I can in that space, because it's really not an easy journey.
Thank you. Thanks.
Pleasure. Ross?
Yeah, Christine, yeah, it just provoked an interesting idea. I mean, my understanding of Agile comes from many years ago, predates the actual, Agile term becoming mainstream and that. And so what I learned in those early days, and I learned Agile in development when I started moving towards developing using object-oriented techniques and things like that, was that, and I think the software industry picked up on that very, very well, and it's now being proliferated into other related industries and things like that. But what I realized was that if we've done a good job on our core design, and you know, in terms of meeting the MVP, then we don't actually need to worry. And that's the mental shift from that waterfall type idea of, oh, I've got to get everything under the belt. And that's what I found, that that object-oriented paradigm helped me to realize that yes, these systems are extensible, but let's focus on the core elements, get those right. And I mean, certainly, that is one thing that really helped me adapt to the concepts of Agile as we now know them and talk about them. And still a lot of people obviously with that waterfall type thinking, trying to get to grips with the Agile type thinking.
Yeah, no, I'm a big advocate. I'm a certified product owner in Safe Agile. And it was mind-boggling to actually go on that course, because I think change managers need to play a bigger role in the Agile space. But I'm finding where the two worlds collide, there's this confusion where we're not doing a service to Agile or waterfall, because they don't break, so they don't start with core and critical and then build on that. It's like, okay, let's take this piece, it's much nicer. Let's finish that MVP, and then they move on to the next one. But you can't build on it because it's almost like a standalone. And the whole principle of Agile is iterations that build on each other. Anyway, I mean, that's another topic for another occasion, but a huge advocate of Agile. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank
Okay,
you.
so Howard is in suspense. I can see he wants to do the metrics.
I've got to
And-
find the metrics. I've got to see them.
Well, Howard, I'm going to disappoint you. I'll say it up front, because your level of metrics, and mine. But let me come back to ADCAR before I go there. Okay. So here's the ADCAR journey, like we showed in the front. This is saying that the learning happens here in ability. So it's nothing you haven't seen. In the learning, like I say, if you've got an authoring tool, you can measure and get results from the authoring tool. And here I've written some metrics. Now, what I've realized is there are metrics that we haven't even thought about. So when we in the communication, a lot of organizations have a campaign tool, a communication campaign tool, that can tell them how many people opened the message, how many people hit on the double. In this organization that I'm working at, they've got Eloqua. Also, before I go into each of these, there's analytics in all the technical tools we have, and they are incredible. Teams have got their own analytics. I don't know if you know that. So you can, if you create a Teams channel, you can see how often, what hits you're getting, who's looking at it, what they're downloading. It's amazing. It's just there as a standalone. So if you're creating a project repository, regardless of where you are on this journey, you can already, as a team, see how they're interacting with the knowledge that you've made available by your team's channel and the analytics there. You have to be the channel owner for you to access that analytics. The other thing is SharePoint is amazing. And I want to tell you, have any of you ever experienced Delve, Microsoft Delve?
Yeah.
It is a wealth of information. And if you're an owner in that space, you can get incredible insights as to what your learners and users are looking at, using, questioning. And then, of course, the social channel. If we are an organization of data, we have to create social channel where there's the conversation
Sorry, Christine. I think we're losing you. Am I just the only one that's picking up problems with Christine?
No,
Just
I'm also
picking up
struggling.
problems as our
Yeah.
struggling. We were losing.
Christine, I wonder if you can just switch off your incoming video. You're breaking up. It's interrupting. I think we've lost Christine, guys.
Where's Christine? Load shedding.
No, sometimes she battles with.
Sorry about.
No, it's okay. Is it possible to switch off your incoming video, Christine?
Yes, I'm switching that off. Sorry, it just took a dip all of a sudden. I can't understand
Yeah.
why.
No problem.
Sorry about that. So we need to create communities of practice, and
Yeah.
setting up whatever social platform the organization uses will give you the intelligence you need around that topic. It's very powerful. So, I mean, that's just wearing my change management hat and saying these are standard metrics already in the organization. Okay. Then if we layer on and we understand the environment of the organization and what tools they use, we can actually have a look at whatever campaign. So I don't know if anybody knows Eloqua, but it actually offers, let me just go out of here. I want to show you the metrics. So this is one campaign. It was sent to 306 people. People opened it more than once. You can actually see there. And in that communication, we had links. So there were 20 unique links and 250. There were, sorry, this is who opened and read it. This is unique open. So within that comms, there were links, and unique clicks was within this click that you went to, there was a click-through rate. So this tells us that it was a successful communication, because even if a third just read it, now that tells us that the way we're communicating and what we're saying is well received. If you get a low one, the way you're going to communicate the next comms will be different. And remember up here, I said communication runs throughout the journey. It's not a once-off event. We develop plans. So this would be an important metric. Here, what we've got is an example. Okay, so assessments and Howard, very good with that. That gives you pre-intelligence as to the maturity and this is a readiness assessment example.
Yeah.
But we do impact assessments, so you have an understanding of what the gap is. And if we're talking about a tool, let's say Power BI or Salesforce or whatever, those systems have their own analytics built in. We just need to understand the reports. So within Salesforce, you will be able to see whatever it is that so this was case management, you know, what the results are and how people are tracking. This is now post go live. This is a metric post go live. This is a metric. Remember I mentioned SEN, SAP Enable Now. When you learn a transaction, so when you learn to create a quote in Salesforce, okay, there are different transactions you need to learn. This is the learner report. Who did how many lessons and how long it took them. If I double clicked in here, it will be able to tell me which tests they did, how this person performed. So I can get live learner reports as they happen, depending on the authoring tool. Now I've got this whole intelligence here, right from upfront, right through to the learning engagement, right to the end. That can tell me a whole lot about what I need to know. So I don't have a hard and fast formula. What I propose is if you're looking at metrics, don't forget the standard metrics and tools in place. Don't forget the authoring tool and what that can give you. Think about the platform that the transactions are happening and what analytics are available there. Howard, Power BI.
Yeah.
Would they have built-in analytics on usage, user usage? Like who's used this dashboard and when they use it and what they use it for?
They do. Yes, they do. There's a lot of that BI managers have to do in terms of understand who's clicking on what report and
Yeah.
things like that. So there's usage details on that. Yes.
So there's lots of data. We do post-training learning assessments as well. My experience in this current organization is they don't have time for surveys. So the tool I use very, very excitedly is Forms.
Yeah.
And it's fabulous because it does the analytics for you as well.
Right. So whilst you're opening that, I'm just going to ask a question. Nisha's asked, can you advise on surveys, how best to use them when, especially on readiness assessments?
Yeah, readiness assessment, sure. So for me, I customize it as much. I won't go into this one. I'll send a sample of a readiness if you like. So readiness, if you just think of when readiness happens, it happens after training, before go live. So if it's a system go live, it'll happen before go live. Also, a post go live, a month after hypercare, I suggest you do an adoption assessment. So it's a readiness assessment after go live, about a month, to see how the tool has been adopted. I use Forms. I have 4 areas. One is always got a learning. So how was the learning experience? What are the gaps? And a lot of the time it is around the project itself, the specifics of the project. There's also for readiness, a go, no go kind of situation where you're wanting to establish that. And I don't believe in doing 2 readinesses. So the project team would do a readiness assessment and we would do one. So they would say, did the testing happen? Did this happen? Is the system ready? Do we have sign off? That for them is like a gate to agree on. I'm talking more from a user adoption readiness. So people confuse that sometimes. They think it's one and the same, but it can be combined. I would recommend it's combined. But I like Microsoft Forms. They've made it very, very easy. I mean, I used to set up monkey surveys and then have to deal with the analytics, and I'm happy to give a 101 on that, so we can use a readiness assessment. It is so powerful and so easy. I mean, when you've used Menti in a live situation, you can see the power of that. The only caveat I'd like to say is an organization needs to put the time aside to do the survey. It's very frustrating that they don't see that as important. So how the metrics are still maybe a bit too vague. I know you like the tangible, but I just wanted to give a framework here, and it would be quite relevant to the project, you know. So this is a post, this one is a post readiness assessment before go live. And after training and hypercare, I would do a adoption assessment. So how efficiently are they using the tool? What are the current challenges? Is it easy for them to access information? Is reinforcement available? This SAP Enable now has got an incredible reinforcement tool. So when you go through the learning collateral, it also develops a quick reference guide automatically and a work instruction booklet where the screenshots are in a Word document along with the instructions.
Okay.
I can show you what that looks like. Just give me a sec. But I think we're over time. If there are any
I just wanted to
questions.
see, just to see if there are any questions. Would anyone like to, whilst Christine's loading up, are there questions from anybody?
Unless they've all left already. So this is a quick reference guide from the instruction, from the work from one of the system lessons. And then there's also, so it's very user-friendly. You know, I don't need to go through the training material again after go live. I can quickly go and see where have I gone wrong or what have I forgotten.
Fantastic. Christine, thanks very much. I think what I like about this is actually seeing the different types of metrics: communication, impact, readiness, adoption, and tools. So those are helpful, where we can just drill down and create the metrics that we need. But nice to be able to measure across all of that. I think that's exactly what we need to do. And I would, just a question I had was, for example, if I separate between this awareness and then data literacy, or awareness and then any form of training on the DMBARC or CDMP, you almost want to make sure that people are ready for the knowledge sharing or the training before they go on the training, right? So that awareness, desire, you'd almost like to have a gate there to ensure that the people are going to come on and have a positive experience.
Yeah, I mean, if a group's coming, how's the training being positioned to them? It has such a big impact. I mean, I've emphasized it already 3 times, but in my experience, often people attend a course and they don't even know why they've been sent there. Yeah.
Okay.
And if they know that, and they know that they're valued and they're special, their willingness to apply their mental matter is going to be a lot higher.
Sure.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's very important. So I know I need to jump off. Christine, I'd just like to say thanks very much. And just, are there any questions before we close the session? Thanks a lot. It's close on 5:30. That's been great. Thanks for hanging around, Christine. I appreciate it. Any questions for Christine? Okay. If you would like, I know Christine is always available. We can share details, contact details, also on LinkedIn. We'll also share the presentation. Christine, I'd appreciate that.
Yes.
That
Sure.
readiness template. I know someone asked for readiness template. That will be great. And thank you again. Thanks, everybody.
They can WhatsApp me, hey? I've just put my number in the chat if they need.
Okay.
All right. Cool.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you very much. It was really a great session.